Have you ever heard of breadcrumbing? What? Breadcrumbing? Well, this is an internet phenomenon that have a dark secret hidden for their victims. Just like manipulation and gaslighting, breadcrumbing has its own evil tactics. A dark secret? Yeah, look. See that? One of the darkest secrets of breadcrumbers is that they typically exert their power on people who they know have strong feelings for them. As unfulfilling and painful as it may be, this often results in the other person suppressing their own needs in order to preserve their attachment to the breadcrumber. Over time, it could cause victims to lower their standards and learn that they must accept the bare minimum of love or attention that is provided by others. Now let's dive in a little deeper. What is breadcrumbing? You see, when a perpetrator leads the victim on by dropping small hints of interests, such as social media interactions, occasional messages, or brief phone calls, these interactions are intended to suggest the person is still interested, but they occur sporadically, and there is generally no intention of following through with anything. Much like Hansel and Gretelling, the term breadcrumbing is derived from the idea of leaving behind a trail of breadcrumbs for someone to find what they're looking for. Much like the children's story, it has become an all too common form of manipulation in the dating world, especially with the rise of online and app dating. Breadcrumbing versus gaslighting. While it may sound a lot like gaslighting, and both are typical forms of manipulation, it's not the same thing. But the same personality types can perpetrate both. Let me explain. While breadcrumbing is, in essence, leading someone on, gaslighting is the deliberate attempt to blur someone's concept of reality, which causes the victim to question their judgment and perception. Go check out my video on gaslighting. Moving on. To name a few, breadcrumbing can lead to hurt feelings and sleepless nights. Still, it's not as directly manipulative as gaslighting, which alienates the victim from friends and themselves with the intent to control. Breadcrumbing and gaslighting are similar because they make the victim doubt what they know, question their own perspective, and question the perpetrator's intentions. Breadcrumbing involves a small but inconsistent supply of interest that keeps someone feeling as though there is a potential for more and causes someone to question whether the person actually cares about them. Whereas gaslighting involves a person actively trying to make someone question their perception of reality. The goal here is to convince a person that their thoughts are wrong, which works to erase their confidence and their ability to make clear judgments. Both of these manipulation tactics involve using emotional relevant information against another, and both are tactics that people use to exert power and control in relationships. What are the signs? While not all these may be happening at once, breadcrumbing usually consists of some combination of these actions by the perpetrator. A classic example of breadcrumbing is the inability to make or commit to plans. In this instance, the breadcrumber will entertain the idea of meeting up for a date, such as a movie, dinner, or just to hang out in person, but will never pin down an exact date to do so. That said, they'll often feign enthusiasm as they suggest a later date. Think of texts like, "that sounds fun," or "maybe next time." Moreover, if plans to hang out fall through, you'll notice that the breadcrumber will be vague when it comes to finding a date for a rain check. The act of breadcrumbing gets its name from micro-communicating with a victim. Micro-communication is not a complete lack of association, nor is it ignoring or blowing someone off. Instead, it is dropping small, exclusively digital bits of communication or acknowledgement, sometimes as small as commenting with emojis on your social media posts. In essence, they are doing the bare minimum to maintain a semblance of a relationship without investing much time or effort. The whole point of breadcrumbing is not just the sporadic communication, the small bits of communication and connection, or the breadcrumbs. Give the recipient the false hope of potential relationship or greater commitment. Often these can manifest as moments of brief connection where the recipient feels seen and appreciated, and closely followed behind by periods where the victim will feel and be ignored. Consider communication times from the perpetrator. This is one way to spot breadcrumbing, noticing when someone is reaching out. Let me explain. If someone is only texting late at night, when they're at their loneliest and potentially only seeking validation, meaning you will not hear from them during the day, but only the times when they want you to hear from them. Pretending to be thoughtful is just another common tactic used to string the victim along. This is feigned thoughtfulness. In other words, a breadcrumber that checks in on someone's day or following up about something specific. But once the victim responds, they may not message them back for days, or they may respond with an answer that is short and surface level. So, after a period of absences, breadcrumbers typically make no effort to explain themselves or consider the recipient's feelings. Tell me, have you experienced breadcrumbing before? I bet a lot of you have. Tell me your story in the comments below. I would love to hear some. Anyway, let's move on. Why do people breadcrumb? Unfortunately, there isn't a one-size-fits-all explanation for breadcrumbing behavior. The underlying causes for each instance can be as varied as the relationship in which they occur. However, there are common rewards that breadcrumbers are probably seeking out. What are those, you may ask? Well, just like narcissists, breadcrumbers seek self-esteem. Unfortunately for the victims, the breadcrumbers may only be engaging with them to make themselves feel better. They do this by using their interactions with someone who is interested in them as a pick-me-up when they're feeling low. You know, that sort of thing. The breadcrumber can use the attention from their victims as a sort of currency on the dating market. The knowledge that someone is into them, even if the feelings aren't reciprocated, can go a long way to boosting the perpetrator's confidence. Also, the breadcrumber may not be ready to settle down and commit to one person. If this is the case, they might enjoy the feeling brought on by having the real potential for a relationship, but struggle with the idea of actually committing to one. Just having that option available to themselves while never acting on it in any meaningful way adds to their immaturity. But in doing so, there is a failure to communicate about their availability and intentions with honesty and integrity. Fearing doing so would result in fewer options. Breadcrumbers are often conflict and confrontation averse and tend to avoid negative or stressful interactions. This includes sharing and expressing emotional interest in victims. Just remember that this is all a result of self-centered fears. You know, like rejection or commitment. One of the most difficult examples of breadcrumbing to identify, as it often occurs post-breakup, keeping in touch. In this case, the breadcrumber themselves might even believe that they're only checking in on the former partner, but actually, they are retaining some beneficial part of the relationship for themselves and inhibiting the victim from moving on. Serial breadcrumbers have been found to have personalities that are associated with elevated levels of narcissism, having little regard for the feelings of those around them, and having no remorse for others' hurt feelings. This is true even if they, and sometimes they aren't, are aware that they're manipulating people for temporary and shallow personal gains. The impact. We all know that trust is built through actions over time, and when someone that you are close to continually violates the trust by feeding empty promises, the structure of the relationship begins to crumble. However, often individuals might not even realize what's happening, as the breadcrumber feeds them just enough affection and empty promises to make up for it, while also making the victim come back for more. This loss of trust is often pervasive and extends into future relationships. Everyone should strive for a relationship that they can depend on, but the abusive nature of breadcrumbing relationships takes these feelings to a toxic level. The victim feels that they are totally dependent on the perpetrator and are constantly looking for the next breadcrumb of validation to be dropped. These pieces of acknowledgement or intimacy are calculated to keep the victim invested and dependent on the abuser, with little actual commitment from the breadcrumber. Being constantly manipulated and strung along in this manner takes an enormous toll on an individual, like emptiness. You know, in conclusion, although the abuser has provided the victim with just enough breadcrumbs to lead them on, at its root, these are insubstantial and carefully placed promises and attentions designed to manipulate. That's it for this video. If you really enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like. If you hated it, also drop a like. And don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified of any new uploads. Thanks for watching. See you next time.